implemented the Student Discipline Task Force. You may not know about the Student Discipline Task Force, but you can find it if you go online and just look for it under the Broward County website. I was the only current or former school board member to serve on this task force, along with 18 others from the community, representing minority groups, parents, law enforcement, teachers, and central office staff with varying expertise. In addition, I sat on the discipline committee itself of the school board for 2 years, hearing appeals from long-term suspension and expulsion recommendations. I was particularly interested and expressed concerns of the disproportional representation of minority and special education subgroups of students in the suspension data. It happens in Loudoun, it happens in other parts of Virginia, and it happens nationally. We have that problem. What stood out to me was the members of these subgroups, for whatever reason, feeling intimidated by the process or culturally not likely to challenge authority, often did not appeal their suspensions to the school board. So one reason why there may be an increase that they don't appeal. When students have come before the discipline committee, which I sat on for 2 years, my experience is that many times their recommendation for suspension or expulsion were modified by the committee. I authored 2 task force recommendations that I thought might address this reality. One, I said, why not appoint a school-based resource, such as a guidance counselor or the head of the special ed in that particular building, or even the family liaison, someone who would be willing to do this for the purpose of not to advocate for the student, not to be his lawyer, but he would assist these parents and students to understand how the process works. They get a huge package in the mail when they get ready to be suspended. I mean, very huge. It has all the policies and all the gobbledygook that we write them in, and it has all of the test scores that they have, and the attendance records, and the report cards, and letters that went back and forth. It's very intimidating, but it's not that big of a deal if you know how to use it, and you can't easily be heard by the school board. I also said, what happens in a situation where a group of students get caught in something, and they're all suspended or they're all threatened with expulsion? What happens to that if only one of those students appeal? Well, if one of those students appeal and the school board discipline committee listens to it, that's the end of it. The discipline committee does not know anything about the other students involved. So I advocated, after an appeal is modified for one of several students involved in an incident, consider the disciplinary disposition of all students involved in the same instance. That's a prerogative that the school board could do if they were allowed to do so. But since they don't have any information, they haven't been able to do so. That might put a dent in the disproportional representation of minorities and special education students. The current discipline committee has been reviewing all 39 recommendations methodically and is in the process of sending their findings to the entire school board for their action with their advice. Their other recommendations are equally important as the ones I've mentioned, but I do want to say that one time we found out that the principals really did not understand that they had the ability to consider intent, because the state demands such repercussions from anybody involved in drug distribution and weapons that it's almost like a mandate that these people are to be brought up for suspension or are to be brought up for expulsion. We finally put a policy and said, yes, principals, you can consider intent. Yes, if you look at a kid's backpack and he has a camping equipment, even though the inch may be a little bit longer than you like it to be, it's a Class A type of a weapon, if it's considered as a weapon, consider the intent. But they oftentimes have never done that. And I've been to one of those meetings where I finally said to the principal, do you really think the student is a danger to the school community? And he said no. So I didn't say, what the hell you recommend his expulsion for? But the fact is, I think he didn't feel he had the flexibility to do that.